Hey guys, this is Jam with AudioMediaProductionService.com. I did have a request to do a quick start video on the Behringer X32 or a Midas M32 for the newbies that just got the console, and they look at it and they're so confused they don't know what to do and get the show going. So that request came from one of my subscribers or someone that commented on it. His name was MW Calder 95. So I do appreciate the comment. If any of you guys have questions, please feel free to comment, and I do try to make videos for people. So just to run that by you. So this is going to be the quick start video. Go ahead and try to make this a short one and most easy for you guys to follow. This section of the board right here is going to be your input section of the console. I do have the Behringer compact, so this is in layers of 8 on the big one, and the Midas M32 you're going to have 16 faders on the input side and less buttons over here. So with digital consoles you have, you're going to be in layers, so you're going to have to move from layer to layer to get to the channels that you want. So on the Behringer X32, you got channels 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, 25 through 32. We have aux ins, where on the back of the console you can plug in break music and things like that. There's some TRS quarter-inch jacks on the back. That's your aux ins. And those return here on this aux in / USB recorder section. Your USB recorder can play music, and this is where that would return at, stock from the board when you get it. And on my console, you'll have the next layer, which will be your effects returns. So you're going to send from your outputs to your effects. They're going to return over here on this section. Like I said, on the bigger X32 and the Midas, the big one, you're not going to have so many buttons and layers. This is in groups of 8. So on that one, you're going to have groups of 16. So on the bigger one, it's going to look like this, and you're going to have 16 faders. You're going to have your aux ins and your effects returns all on one section. So hopefully that didn't confuse you, what I just did there. But the compact allows me to get them all across there if you want. So that's the input section. Then we got the output section of the console. This is strictly outputs. So we're going to have DCAs 1 through 8. What DCAs stand for is digitally controlled amplifier. This pretty much allows you to remote control a bunch of faders with one fader, just like a subgroup. So in the analog world, we use subgroups to do this. The difference between DCAs and subgroups is you can't add compression, EQ, or gates or any effects or anything to a DCA. To a subgroup, you can. So if you wanted to have that option, so you needed to EQ the whole drums as one, I would recommend using a subgroup, and I do have another video about how to assign subgroups. I'll also include a little bit quick tutorial on how to do that here. So moving on to the next layer, you're going to have your bus out section. You got 1 through 8, 9 through 16, and on all the big consoles, these are in groups of 8, so that's not going to look different on your console. And then the very last layer on the output section is your matrix outs. These can be configured to be crossover filters. They can be your inputs for, or record outs, say video outs if you wanted your left and right to record, you know, to say you're doing a wedding or something and the photographer needed to record out, or the video guy, you could do it there. So that covers the output section. With any digital console, you do need to hit select on the channel you want to work on. And they'll have a dedicated fat channel, whether it's the X32, the Midas M32, you have to hit select on the channel you want to work on. On the analog board, we had rows of knobs with channel strips above every fader, above every input. In the digital world, it's all compact down into layers, so you got to know where to go to get to where you need to be. It's not just laid out in front of you. So you have a dedicated fat channel for every channel or input or output you select. So on this board in the Midas, you have config/preamp section. That's going to be your gain, your phantom power, your polarity reverse, your high pass filter. Underneath that, you're going to have a gate and a compressor. This can be an expander or a ducker also. You're going to have your equalizer. This is where you go EQ your channel. And just like everything else on the console, everything's in layers. So even your EQ is in layers. So you gotta, if you want a low filter, you gotta hit the low filter, and then these change to be your filter points, and all those will change. Those knobs and parameters will change for each filter you choose. And then next you have your assignment to your main left and right bus, to your mono bus, and then to your mix buses. So that's the fat channel section. That's excluding this part of the board up here. So every time I hit or select on a channel, you'll see these parameters change. This whole section right here. That's because that's my channel strip for what mic or instrument I'm working on. Same goes with the outputs. You hit the select button, that changes the fat channel. And you got all those parameters on all those. Up top, we have a USB recorder, so you can record. Like right now, I'm recording my audio to you guys through the USB recorder. Next to that, we have the monitor/talkback section. So you can plug in a talkback mic. On my board, it's in the back. On the Midas M32, it's in the front, the talkback section. On this console, there is a view button under every section of the console. So if you need to see that section to get more in depth with the parameters, you just simply hit the view button by what section you want to look at. So like right now, I'm looking at the gate on my vocal. Here's a compressor for my vocal. You can engage it or disengage it by the compressor button, and then there's a threshold knob, quick access. Now you'll hear my voice getting compressed. We have EQ, like I told you before. So just make sure you hit the view buttons. If you need to get around real quick to see things on the screen, just remember those view buttons are everywhere on this console. And that's the easy way to get through it. So that's the input, the output section. Talked about hitting select to change the fat channel section. We got the talkback. Every section does have in-depth parameters. You can watch my other videos to learn more about those parameters. But this is the quick start guide. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go over it. Some things you need to know is there's this middle button in between the input and the output section. This is your sends on fader button. This is how you're going to send to monitors. There's 3 ways to send to monitors, and try to break this down as not confusing as possible. On the big X32 and the Midas M32, you're going to have the easiest way to send to monitors on that board is you're going to have a row of 4 knobs under the mix or bus mixes section. And it's going to be in layers too, but you're going to have encoders just like in the analog world. So my advice, if you're just starting out and you need to get stuff sent to monitors, use those knobs or those encoders up there. It's going to be the easiest and quickest way for you to get a channel to the monitors. So you'd select the channel, and those encoders up there are going to change under the bus mix section or mix bus send section, and you'll see that, and you can just use those encoders to send how much you want. I have the Behringer compact, so I don't have those. They took that out. So that's one way to send to monitors. The other way is to go ahead and select the channel you want to send to one of the monitors. You need to have your monitors layer highlighted on the output section. So usually I have bus 1 through 8 is my monitors. So you can see I got wedge left, center, right, drum wedge. So the input selected that I want to send to the monitors, you hit sends on fader. Then this section will change to my sends for every monitor for that channel. So I got my vocal. I'm sending my vocal to monitor 1, sending my vocal to monitor 2, sending my vocal to monitor 3, sending my vocal to monitor 4. That's the sends on fader button. So when I'm line checking a band, I'm usually going through every channel. That's the way I do it. The sends on fader button. Have that on because I'm usually selecting the channel that I'm working on because I'm EQing it in the front of house and getting, turning it up in the front of house. But now when someone needs it, I can quickly put it in their monitor over here. That one channel. Now there's another... Excuse me. I just turned my vocal off. All right, there's another way to do it, okay? So the other way to do the sends on fader button is the opposite. So you could select the monitor mix and see all the sends or all the channels go into that one monitor just by having the sends on fader button on, flashing like that, and hitting or selecting the monitor you're looking at. And then these become the sends to that monitor. See? If you look closely as I send my vocal, you'll see it come over in monitor 1, right? There it is. So you can look at a whole entire mix in a monitor with the faders, or you can just you can look at that one channel, that one microphone going to all the monitors. I hope that makes sense to you guys. For your newbies, I would stick to using, if you're used to analog, just crossing over in the digital world, use the knobs. If you got the Behringer X32, if you got the small one like me, you're going to have to do it on the faders. So you're going to have to learn the sends on fader button. Thing to remember with the sends on fader button is which side, do you have an input selected or do you have an output selected? Because that's going to determine which side you're looking at for your sends. So if I have an input selected with the sends on fader button on, I'm sending from my output side of the board. If I have my one of my outputs selected, I'm sending from the input side of the board. So keep that in mind. And then if that button's flashing and you're trying to turn up one of your faders in front of house, you're going to be turning it up in the monitor. So make sure that button is not on if you want to get back to your front of house layer. That button needs to be off if you're working in the front of house. Moving on, we have the scenes section. This is where you're going to store your scene. So if you hit view by the scene section, this is where you can go in here and save, edit, all that stuff. There's 6 encoders underneath the screen. So all those encoders, when you hit a view button underneath any section, these encoders have more parameters and control more parameters in depth for that section you're on. So you'll see these 6 boxes under here, and just make sure to read what they're saying and telling you to do, because that's what they will do. So that's your scene section. That's where you can go to save and load a preset or a band snapshot. And I do get more in depth with all these things. It's a lot of information to try to tell people, but if you just need to get quickly started, just recommend doing this. The assign section, this section of the console is completely customizable for you to get to anything. So you can assign these. In my case, I got 1 through 4 to be my graphic EQs, and I got tutorials about how to set that up, so please look at my other videos. I think when you get the board stock, your assignments 1 through 4 are graphic EQs, I believe. So I got them set up as graphic 1, 2, 3, 4, so I can EQ each monitor very quickly. I got a tap tempo delay for my reverb, and my reverb is on output 15 and 16. Even though you got your mains plugged into output 15 and 16, that's where you're sending to your main system. It's not, that's kind of a bypass. So your effects are sending from here, but they're returning over in the aux, the effects return section over here. So there's your sends, there's your returns for your monitors. So you can assign these buttons to be anything, and you have 3 layers, and you have 4 encoders on the bigger console. So those are completely assignable too. You just simply hit the view button and go through the parameters and check it out, and you can assign those sections and those buttons. Below that, we have a mute group section. If you want to set up your mute groups, you're going to have to quickly, you're going to have to turn this mute group button to the right of the screen on, and then you can hold down that what mute group you want, and then you can just simply choose the channels you want going to that mute group, the select buttons, while holding that mute group down. Then when you let go, then you turn off that mute group engage button. Now the mute groups actually work. You can see that they're working right there. So that's how you assign the mute groups. So I already talked about sending to monitors. If you had subgroups set up, you wanted subgroups, one thing you're going to have to do is it's just like a monitor mix. Subgroups, you're going to select the subgroup, which is one of your outputs. You're going to hit sends on fader. But then instead of sending to a subgroup, you don't have a volume control for subgroups. All you got to do is unmute the channels you want in that subgroup. And then so on. Go to the next one, etc. But remember, the faders don't even matter when you're sending to a subgroup. It's just the mutes. So when they're unmuted, they're going to the subgroup. When they're muted, they're not going to the subgroup. Make sure to hit the sends on fader button off. DCAs, quickly to send something to a DCA, you just hold down the select button of the DCA and then choose the select button for the specific channels you want to go to the DCA. And then let go, and then you should see signal coming in there. So like, for example, there's nothing coming in on DCA1 right now. If I select DCA1 and then hit my vocal channel that you're hearing me, you'll see signals come over here now in DCA1. I now have control of my vocal in DCA1. That's pretty much a quick overview. If you're wondering about all these different pages up here, please check out my other videos. Hopefully that's enough information to get you guys started for a quick setup and get you going quickly and get you understanding digital consoles. If, you know, they say this board's pretty easy to run when you're first starting out in the digital world, I kind of have to disagree with that. Yeah, they kind of got it set up pretty easily, but there's so much functionality into this board and the Midas that it can actually be pretty overwhelming for newbies. I've been trying to, that's why I've been making this whole YouTube channel. I'm trying to help people wrap their minds around it. Just like anything, it becomes very, very easy once you get it, you know, once you learn it. You know, I've been running this board for about 5 nights a week for about 3 years. So, and not just this one, I run the Midas every week too, the M32 at a venue I work at. So, there's tons and tons of stuff to learn about this board, but hopefully that's a quick overview of everything that'll get you started. If you like the videos I'm doing, please give me a thumbs up. Please comment and subscribe if you got any other questions. Go over to my website at audiomediaproductionservice.com. Subscribe to my newsletter. That'll put your name in our free audio gear giveaways. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, that puts your name in the audio gear giveaways also. The only things I send to you in your email is, you know, little articles I write about compression, understanding compression, gates, EQs, things like that. I send videos, video training courses, and, you know, free things sometimes. So I recommend you guys go over there, subscribe. I much appreciate all your support. I also, for your newbies, I do have presets and scenes available for download that you can just load on your USB drive, load them up, and they got channels labeled for you. Oh, excuse me, that's one thing I need to do. I need to show you how to label a channel on here. So sorry about that. There's a lot to cover, like I said. So quickly, to show you how to label the channel strips, go ahead and hold down the select button, hit the utility button next to the screen, and now that section comes up on the board. You can change the colors, etc. You can change pictures, you can label it, etc. So that's how you quickly do that. Thanks for all your guys' support. Please comment, subscribe. Check out my scenes and presets on my website, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.